back with former Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Arens. Professor Arens, thank you very much for joining us. But give us the perspective from a defense minister's point of view of what's happening in Gaza now.
Well, what's happening in Gaza now is a war. But it's not only in Gaza, it's also in Israel. Because the rockets that are being fired by Hamas fall on Israeli soil and on Israeli civilians. So it's a war with significant dimensions for a small country like Israel.
Recently in past years, the tolerance of having casualties in wars, not only in Israel, but elsewhere around the Western world, has almost diminished. How long do you think Israeli society will tolerate an ongoing operation in Gaza, whereas you'll have more and more Israeli casualties over there?
I don't think that this will, in this case, really turn out to be an overriding consideration, because the people of Israel, throughout Israel, not just those who live near the Gaza Strip, know that they are threatened, and know that they have been threatened, and that some of the rockets that landed in the Tel Aviv area, or even up to Haifa, could have brought about very serious casualties amongst the civilians. So I think there's a general feeling amongst the population of Israel that this is an unavoidable operation, and that the object of the operation is to save lives and not to bring about casualties.
Let's talk about the objects of the operation, which what was set forth by the Prime Minister was pretty modest. I mean, to eliminate or at least fight the tunnels and try to bring peace to the people in Israel. Is there a far-reaching target that can be achieved, like some say here in Israel, as, for instance, eliminating the Hamas regime in Gaza?
I think that the ultimate objective, I don't know if it will be achieved, it's the one I think that we would like to achieve, is to disarm Hamas and to do away with that large armory of weaponry, of rockets that they have, do away with the tunnels, in effect eliminate the danger that Hamas has been facing Israel. Eliminating Hamas itself, I don't think that this is really in the realm of the realizable. It's an ideological organization. It's a Muslim fanatic organization, and I think it will be there probably for years to come, not only in Gaza. It's affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. It's a worldwide, or an Arab worldwide phenomenon.
But still, the United States is out of the picture. How do you explain that?
Well, Egypt is in the picture, and I think that's probably the reason why the United States is out of the picture.
Is this an American mistake?
Well, no, I don't think it's an American mistake. It's just a change of scenery in the area. It would have been different if Morsi had still been the president of Egypt. Morsi was the candidate of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood were affiliated with Hamas in Gaza. They went hand in hand, and so maybe there would have been room for the United States to come in the middle and see what they could do in terms of negotiating something that would be agreeable to everybody. But Egypt is on the spot. Egypt has called for a ceasefire, and I suppose that in Washington they really don't see room for themselves at the moment. I can understand that.
Would you say that if Egypt will come back with a tangible ceasefire agreement with Hamas, Israel would accept it now?
Well, Israel has already accepted the ceasefire call by President Sisi. I think that what probably disappointed the people from Hamas was the position of Sisi, who said first ceasefire, negotiations afterward.
Isn't it supposed to be the other way around? I mean, first you set the terms and then there's a ceasefire. How can you agree in retrospect? It's a little strange, isn't it?
Well, I think it's not strange if you think about the lives of the people involved. Hamas, I think that's probably not their first priority. If the lives of the people in Gaza had been their first priority, they never would have started this in the first place.
But there are, many in Israel who would say, okay, we stopped firing, but still we have rockets aiming at us, we have tunnels, we have the probably other tunnels to Egypt. Did we achieve anything?
No, well, the Israeli agreement to a ceasefire, of course, is contingent to Hamas also agreeing. So we have a situation where Israel agreed to the ceasefire call of the Egyptians, and Hamas did not agree. Well, as long as Hamas keeps fighting, Israel will keep defending itself.
Yeah, well, it looks like a never-ending circle. Is there any solution down the line anywhere?
Well, you're talking about a solution for Gaza?
Probably.
I think the solution for Gaza is probably obvious, except to the people in Hamas. The people who rule Gaza, and that's Hamas, would have done better than investing their resources in building tunnels and manufacturing rockets and preparing for a war against Israel, in investing in Gaza, in the welfare of the people in Gaza, in the Gaza economy. These people are living in Gaza, 1.5 million or maybe close to 2 million, live under terrible conditions, under terrible economic conditions. And if anybody was really concerned for their welfare, they would have invested in the Gaza economy.
But if we're talking really long term of somehow, trying to get a peace accord here in the Middle East, what about the role of the Fatah movement, namely the Palestinian Authority, and Mr. Abbas? Where is he in the picture?
Well, he seems hardly in the picture at the moment. People say he's not really relevant, right, Mahmoud Abbas, because Hamas has taken the front seat on the Middle Eastern scene at the moment. But I think it's important to see what is happening in Gaza, and Hamas, this Muslim fundamentalist terrorist organization, is part of the overall picture in the Arab world, what the economists called the Arab tragedy. It's not just Hamas. It's Al-Qaeda, it's Hezbollah, it's the Islamic Caliphate that's now claims to have been established in Iraq and in Syria. It's in Libya. It's a group of fundamentalist terrorist organizations that are bringing the Arab world into a very bad straits. And we find that Israel, we're right in the center of this Arab tragedy.
Yeah.
We don't want to be, but here we are.
Here we are. With this, I thank you very much, Moshe Aarons, former Israeli defense minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With us now are Dani Ayalon, former Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel and former ambassador to Washington, and Israel Maimon, who was the cabinet secretary both in the Olmert and Sharon administrations. That means also during the Second Lebanon War. We'll talk about that. Mr. Ayalon, we spoke a week ago. Has anything dramatically changed in the reality here around Gaza and the Middle East?
Well, of course. The ground operation started after Israel was vindicated in the sense that the cabinet and Prime Minister Netanyahu, I think very wisely, accepted twice ceasefire. The Hamas is now the intransigent party, the aggressive party, so we have a lot of leeway, I think, and some space to do what we need to do. We are, in a sense, reluctant warriors. We did not want to go into Gaza with ground operation, but now, once the ground operation started, I believe that we cannot stop in the middle. Now I think the goal is to get rid of all the infrastructure of Hamas, the enormous infrastructure of the tunnels, of course the rockets capabilities, and I believe that we will have a few more days before we know which way we're going.
Right, but when I referred to reality, I meant rockets are still being targeted at Israel. Tunnels are still being used for terrorist attacks inside Israel, and bombardments of Gaza are still on the way. So basically, we are on the same point, aren't we?
Yes, in that sense, yes, Yaakov, which goes to show that we should not stop short of eliminating the Hamas offensive capabilities, because if we leave them with any offensive capabilities, again, we're only buying time for the next cycle and for the next operation. I think also, on top of what we have discovered on the ground and what the world sees as the aggressiveness of Hamas, we have a new political architecture in the region and beyond. The fact that Egypt is giving us a lot of political cover. Saudi Arabia is even joining Egypt in that sense.
Right.
And of course, still Europe and the United States are still at bay, where the US is giving us a lot of cover in the Security Council in New York. I believe that we have a lot of space to continue and work and make sure that at the end of the operation, at some point the operation of course will end, that at that time the demilitarization of Hamas will be on the table.
Mr. Maimon, you're also a former military officer. I should have said that. This is the third day of the ground operation in Gaza. How do you see it so far?
I think that we meet what we expected. Unfortunately, we'll have casualties. We have already casualties. And I think that we have to see something which is very interesting. The Hamas knows that he has no capabilities to stop us in the border. So what they are doing, they are waiting for us in the points where the IDF is stopping. Now, for instance, we are dealing with the tunnels. We stopped at some perimeter of something like 3 kilometers, and then they are coming and trying to attack us because they know their limitations. I hope, and I know, I really rely on the leadership, the political leadership, and also in the IDF, that we will not be dragged inside, because it will not be easy to deal with what is facing us inside the cities.
I've mentioned that you've been the cabinet secretary during the Second Lebanon War. Let's try to understand what's the difference. At this stage, the Israeli government set very modest goals to this operation, whereas in Lebanon, the Olmert government and then Defense Minister Peretz we're talking about very ambitious goals, such as eliminating Hezbollah and so forth. What's the difference?
Two major ones. First of all, the political leadership has a lot of lessons, not only from the Second Lebanese War, but also from the other two operations in the Gaza Strip. They knew how to set the right goals, not ambitious one. And in relation to what Dania said, I'm not sure that we are capable of destroying all the infrastructure that exists in the Gaza Strip. I think that we have to see and to meet the right expectations. But back to Lebanon, two major issues. One, Kippat Barzel.
Iron Dome.
We didn't have that. So the entire front from the north of Israel was under attacks. It was
that puts
really
a lot of pressure on the government.
A lot of pressure on the government, and that was pushing us inside, not only with airstrikes, but also with ground operation, and it goes in and in and in. This is one. Second is that we had targeted our political targets with Lebanon. That it's a state. Hezbollah was a terrorist organization inside Lebanon. And this is the difference, I think, between Hamas and what has happened in Lebanon. In Hamas, we have only one address, which is Hamas. Of course, we're trying to use now Egypt and others, but still the address is Hamas.
Yeah. Mr. Alon, would you say that, let's say the Egyptians come back with some sort of a proposal for a ceasefire that might be accepted by Hamas, you think Israel would go for that?
Probably. I would say yes. And what was the idea of Egypt that was rejected by Hamas? First of all, stop the fire, and then you talk about a new framework agreement. Israel agreed to that. Hamas didn't. I believe that the longer time elapses, the Hamas will have no choice but accept it, especially that it has no political allies now internationally, except maybe Qatar and Turkey.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, we're talking about eliminating all the arms out of Gaza. Is this by any means realistic?
I think it's realistic if we believe it's realistic. If we do not believe it's realistic, it will never happen. But we should put it on the table as a demand. It may not take place immediately. It may be in phases. But we have, first of all, a precedent in Syria, which of course not everything is similar, but the fact that Syria, Assad, has agreed to elimination of all its chemical arsenal is something of a precedent that the international community can relate to. Mm-hmm. So this is something that we can certainly pursue.
Do you believe it's possible?
I think it's possible, but the question is in what means, whether the means are operation, army operation. I think that we should be much more cautious in that point. I think that as in Lebanon, once again, the resolution 1701, which is not fully implemented, and Danny was there as ambassador in Washington. It was not fully implemented because they didn't put away all the weapons, but still you see that Lebanon trying to control Hezbollah. Hezbollah is controlling it itself. And the mean was not only army. At the end, it's a political agreement, whether by Egypt or whether by other international factors like back then the UN. But still, I think that it's possible, but the mean is not necessarily the ground operation.
Gentlemen, I thank you very much, Israel Maimon and Dania Ayalon. Thank you very much. And this has been a special edition of The World This Week. We'll see you here next Sunday. Meanwhile, have a good week. Thank you very much.